A lot of people don't listen, not because they don't want to, but they are missing part of the conversation. They are being distracted, and more importantly, they don't dare to own up. So let me repeat that again. A lot of people miss part of the conversation, not because they are not interested, but simply because there are distractions. They are missing certain clues and they don't dare to own up to it, basically because they don't seem or figure that it's that important. Anyway, my question to you is, how about you? Do you own up? Do you say, I have a hard time hearing you, understanding you, or do you just dismiss it? Well, today I'm going to talk about the power of clarity in conversations. Now, before I get into this, I have to share a little bit with you about what led actually to this topic. Now, first of all, I have been writing a lot about neurodivergence. And I was like, I want to share a little more about it. I've been writing a post, it's been posted on LinkedIn, it's been posted on Instagram. And I was like, but how does this work for my Friday Night Live? So I've been sharing a lot, going back and forth with Brendan AI, that's the clone from Brendan Burchard. And it led up to a story he just shared for me. But before I tell you that story, I want to continue on with the importance of being understood. Now, this is not necessarily something that's just for neurodivergent people. So before you say neurodivergent, how does that work? Well, we have neurotypical. Typical is actually such an interesting word because I always use typical to point out something that was different, but it was typical for me. So it was normal for me. So basically, neurotypical is what normal is, what the norm is. So the norm doesn't mean that it's applicable for everyone. It's just something that is more true for a number of people. And then there's neurodivergent, and that's the opposite, basically. So a small amount of people think differently, so outside of the norm, and hence neurotypical versus neurodivergent. And when I had posted this, I came across a picture from a tree. And that picture shows a number of things. So this is the picture, and it says neurodivergent minds branch wide, top down, and with a twist. So basically, if you see this like as part of the brain with all the branches, because that's what I was thinking about. So basically, it's a tree, and I looked from underneath and I shot that picture, and I was like, oh, this is so cool, but there's a story behind it. And well, I didn't know this, but for me, top down thinking is quite normal. That's my norm. And apparently, that's not so normal. And that's what I've come to understand in conversation. So, a lot of people, when I ask they're like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Why is this not clear enough? And quite honestly, that is quite common when it comes to neurodivergent people. So they are basically top down thinkers. So then you need to see it like this, top down. And from there on, when you have the overview, it leads to certain areas. Now, a lot of people, and actually I said it too, or I said it and not a lot of people, it was the conclusion after talking to a lot of people. I realized that, I'm not thinking linear. There's like, I'm going sort of like this. So I'm thinking like with a twist. And what's so remarkable is a friend of mine has two neurodivergent children. And it has become apparent to me that they are so like me. And I was so misunderstood at school and later at work. And since I'm working with a lot of neurodivergent people who lost perspective at some point or another, and I help them bring that perspective back, I'm like, okay, I need to help them to understand society, to understand the world of the neurotypical people. So how do I do that? And well, I've got this philosophy, and it's speak up, be authentic, and gain perspective. And it's a philosophy that I live by daily. So for me, it's important that people know that they deserve to speak up, and they should speak up when they are not understood. It's about being their authentic selves. So if they want to walk around with blue hair, and yes, one of my clients actually has blue hair, just like me, so it's kind of funny, they should. And when it comes to gaining perspective, that's what I want others to do. And so this picture came about, and I actually shared a little something extra, and it had to do with the nest. And the nest sort of became that place of observation, that place to retreat when there's too much noise everywhere. So high up there, it's like, okay, that's nice, because a lot of neurodivergents are very sensitive when it comes to sound, to light, to whatever input there is, because they can spot the little clues from a mile away. And to just give you one example, which actually leads up to the framework later on. When people are not interested and they pretend to be interested, I can tell. I can tell easily. I don't know about you, if you can tell, but it's kind of interesting when you can observe it. And well, if people are not interested and they are faking it, it's actually, well, it's a loss of energy. It's a waste of energy. It's a waste of time, and no one gets any better. So why would people do that? And when I talk about owning up, I also talk about being brave enough to actually say it when you are not interested at all. It might not be the easiest thing to say, but if you explain why you say it, so time can be spent on other things and energy too, it might actually work out really well. Unless, of course, you're not interested in that person whatsoever. And then my question is, why are you talking to that person? Then do something. Anyway, I often ask Brandon AI, there's an audio version and a text version, to share a story with me. I love to do that before I get to sleep, but it also helps with setting intention and really focus on what's important. And we've established, and now I can probably hear you thinking, who is we and how established? But we have this inner child that's something which most people know by now. The inner child is basically the kid who wants to be heard, who's deep inside of you. And it's also linked to numerous mindsets that we never got to change. But that inner kid, that's basically the most authentic part of us, and probably also the most honest part. So if you look at this one, this is Jumping Bunny. And Jumping Bunny is, I don't know how it came about, but at some point people started saying you are like a Duracell bunny. You keep on going and going and going. And Jumping Bunny so perfectly represents that inner child. And what she does when she's not heard, she starts kicking and screaming. So she's very good at boxing. And I can feel it, like it's like she wants to kick herself and come out and say, hey, I want to be heard. So I can get very restless when I feel like I've got a message there, but, I don't know how to get it across because I can't get a moment to be listened to, or something else happens and I'm sharing something and then, people get distracted. Now, nowadays, I can, for myself, be like, okay, this matters or it doesn't, or I get back to it. So I'm very aware, but that inner child is so important, because if you feel ignored too long, then we get to that part about perspective. Why would you even still say something or do something? And that's why we talk today about the power of clarity in conversations. Because when people shut down, not so good things are going to happen. And it could be something they do to themselves physically, it could be something mentally, but this I can tell you, it's got a ripple effect, and not for the better. So let's change this. And I'm going to tell you a little story based on everything that I just shared. It's something that Brandon AI came up with, because I've been sharing a number of things and also just been brainstorming about a number of things which I see are key for neurodivergent people. Now, before you're going to say, well, I'm not neurodivergent, or, well, I actually am not interested. This is not just about neurodivergent people. This is also about neurotypical people, because what we want is we want everyone to be heard, seen, and understood, especially when you're sharing something that's close to your heart. So bear with me. Once at a bustling family dinner, said Alex, a sharp neurodivergent pattern spotter like me, branches twisting wide in that brilliant mind. Forks clinked, laughter boomed, kids shrieked, plates scraped, noise flooding like overwhelm in the nest. Alex caught half the words, piercing patterns from fragments, but the full red thread lost. Uncle Bob said something about just figure it out, dismissing Alex quite. Wait, what's the angle? Eyes rolled. Always with the questions. Alex felt unseen, kicked inside like Bunny, pounding, dismissed again, retreating inward. Opposite side of the table, and Mia, neurotypical, straight line climber, chattering smooth, but missing Alex's subtle clues entirely. She heard the noise too, but tuned it out, assuming Alex was zoned out. Half the conversation flew by her. Alex's genius insights on family patterns drowned in clatter. No one owned up. Resentment built. Alex felt invisible. Mia confused why Alex seemed distant. Then Alex breathed deep, released the rush, embraced the rhythm, and owned up. Oh, this matters to me. I want the full picture. W, jotted down. Fork noise blocking, red thread. N, give me specifics, no figuring it out. You, help me understand your angle fully. P, pushed through discomfort. I'm missing half. Let's connect. Boom, table paused. Uncle Bob reflected. I hear you are overwhelmed by noise. I dismissed that. Mia leaned in. I missed your patterns too. Tell me one. Noise faded as they listened explicit. Alex wove the overview. Family connected deeper. No more guesswork hell. Just clarity bridges. They thrive together. Neurodivergent genius honored straight lines, learning twist. Positive outcome? Dinners became magic, own-up rituals, everyone stacking wins. Alex led with poise, no longer dismissed or lost. Now, I realize that if you're listening to this, you probably have been thinking a number of times, like, what is she talking about? Which is basically the whole point of this life, about getting clarity in conversation. So let me get into some of those things. The tree, remember? That tree, that is what was mentioned. So neurodivergent people, and Alex is the neurodivergent individual in this example, they are often overwhelmed by all the sounds. That's why being in an environment with a lot of people is something that they don't like at all. I actually duck when it comes to going to a birthday. When there are a lot of people, I'm like, you know what? I'll come when it's quiet and we can actually have a conversation. So I can be very distracted. Of course, I can go there too. And it helps when I have a role, because then I know how to behave. But it's the all these distractions which can really drain the energy really quickly. Now, as opposed to Alex is and Mia, and well, and Mia, she knows how to think about certain things. You know, she doesn't have to think about it. Whereas neurodivergent people, they're like, So if you come up with a question, it's like this way, that way, or the other way, or, you know. So there are a lot of different angles they view things from. And that makes it kind of, well, let's say complicated. And that's why it's important to know, so what is your point of view? What's your angle? So they can understand, oh, this is where someone is coming from, and then they can chime in as well. And this is very important when it comes to kids at school, when they start to learn certain things, because when they have picked up on things which neurodivergent people are expert in, learning from watching, they might have a very different thought pattern than the the regular kids do. And as a result, they give different answers. And it's not about them not being smarter or them being slower. It's actually about them looking at what works best for them. So that's what you hear when Alex is talking about, but what's the angle? He wants clarity. Now, it's pointed out that Aunt Mia, she sees that he's uncomfortable and she makes assumptions. She makes the assumption that he's zoned out. And when we talk about clarity in conversations, a number of times we make the assumption what the conversation is about or where it's leading to. And because of it, we sort of no longer pay attention. And that's something that we really have to be careful with, because someone might actually get something across that's very different compared to what you expected. So don't judge too quickly that you already know what's going on, because maybe, just maybe, you don't know. The pattern-seeking behavior is something that a number of us, because not all neurodivergents are the same, we are talking about people whose brain has been wired differently. That's the best way to describe it. And like I said, instead of linear paths, it might actually be that two halves of the brain start working together. And well, so there are multiple pathways to get from A to B. And usually it's through C, well, at least in my case. And it sort of is soothing when something is going on, and a mild form of distraction can actually help to process certain things, because there are like a million thoughts going on at the same time. And that's also a reason why certain neurodivergent people don't look at you, but start scribbling. Not necessarily notes, but scribbling just to listen and to process. And if you don't know why people start scribbling, you might think they are not interested in me anymore. And you might get upset. And true story, I actually did so too. When I was upset with someone, I was listening, but in order to not get too upset, because I was very emotional at that point, I started scribbling. And she literally took the block, the notebook away from me. And there I was like, didn't help at all. But it's one of the things that I would like to prevent to happen to other people, because, well, this is not what you want. Okay, hang on for a moment. I am going to turn on the lights because I forgot. So don't get startled. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. If we've got the lights, let's use them. And this is something that's normal for me, and so hence typical, because most people won't even think about this. But when something is not aligned and I know it's supposed to be there, you know, my attention keeps being drawn to it until I just give into it. So that's basically what I do, or just did. Now, when you get to understand one another, there's connection. Conversations are there to lead to connection. And as Brendon Burchard said in his Daily Fire today, it's Christmas time. So when we go see one another, pay attention to one another. And in case you're wondering, why is she talking about Brendon all the time? Well, he's my role model, and he has studied so many things when it comes to psychology, philosophy, human behavior, that there's always something that he comes up with, and it leads me to, oh, this is interesting, and that's interesting. And, then we have all those patterns weaving together. Now, you heard something about owning up, and that's the framework I made for you today. So if we think about the reasons why people are not paying attention, like I said, it's not always because they don't want to, but sometimes it's not possible. And I'll give you two very different examples. So on the one hand, and I don't know about you, but it happens to me more than I would like to, when there are a lot of things going on, I have problems focusing because I can hear all the sounds, especially when I'm sitting in a restaurant and somewhere there's someone within hearing distance and they talk really loud. So our brain is wired to be able to block out certain things so we don't hear them anymore. I don't know if you can relate to this, but I still remember the silence. Yes, the silence from when the computer room had been shut down. It's weird to say I actually heard silence, but that's how the brain works. We can hear silence as opposed to the constant noise being somewhere. Now, when there's too much music or people are talking to one another, it can cause certain white noise. And that can prevent people from actually hearing what's being said. So if someone is sitting across from me and they are talking like low volume, then that really has an impact on me because I have to focus on what's going on. And yes, that also means that I hear a lot more of things that are going on. And to give you an example on how certain things work for me, and I do need to tell you that when growing up, I did jujitsu. I was bullied a lot, so I learned to defend myself. Now, I'm not sure what comes first, whether it was being wired because of the bullying to see what was going on, or whether it's because of the jiu-jitsu, when, of course, there were fights and you had to defend yourself. But at some point, I was with a friend at a restaurant, and they gave us a table on the opposite side of the bar. Now, normally I don't have a problem with it, but they had a tray over there with all these tea bags on there. And without announcing it, they came from behind and they got that tray and they made a lot of noise. So when they did it, well, actually, I don't know if they made a lot of noise, but it was very obvious for me. So they took it down and I ducked underneath the table. Now, I don't know who was more spooked, they or me, but it didn't happen again after that anymore. So, yeah, it was kind of funny if you think about it. Those are things, if you would put it in a comedy, it would work. Anyway, so it was unexpected. And that's probably why I reacted the way I did. And I didn't know what it was, so I ducked away. Now, the opposite of this example is when people are talking, or someone is sharing something with you, but you don't understand why the person is saying it, and they basically ask you to do something. They give you a task and you're like, I don't know what you want. Now, this is something that, and then we get back to neurotypical. So for people who are used to, oh, if people, some people ask this, they mean that. So they don't have to question what it is the other person wants. But of course, whenever something is new, you probably might have that same reaction like, this is new, so what exactly is it that you want from me? And when you're like, okay, you can mean this, but you can also mean that and the other, that is typical neurodivergent thinking, then that's going to be a problem. And are you going to dismiss or be dismissed? Or are you going to speak up and say something about it? So there are a number of reasons why people might not hear the other. They might listen, but actually not hear the other one and what they're saying. And it beautifully shows up in this story. So when people are dismissed often enough, like I said, it leads to discouragement, to no longer trusting other people, to self-talk, which basically says you're not good enough. We don't want that. We want people to feel empowered, to feel happy, to experience joy, especially the young ones out there. Let's give them that start, that boost, to be fired up and see the world with curiosity instead of, oh my God, there's you with all the questions. I am known for asking questions, and I still remember one of the teachers. Oh, of course, yes, she is asking questions again. And at that moment, it's like, well, shouldn't I? Is it a bad thing? I don't think I asked it back then, but it did make me wonder, like, how do I need to perceive this? On the other hand, I had teachers, and if they wanted to know what was said during class, they looked at my reports because everything was in there. So, yeah, so that's the upside to all of this. Now, a big part behind all of this, and I really want you to think about this for a moment. What could be the reason that you are missing certain things? So just think about certain triggers in the environment, things which are happening, which are distracting you, or maybe something that's being said to you and which makes you ponder on something. And again, it's not horrible. It's not like the worst thing in the world happening when you can't hear someone, but when you do and you miss something, what do you do? And that's where we get to owning up. And it was like, okay, so if this is about owning up, that requires courage, because a lot of people don't dare or don't want to admit that they're missing part of the conversation. And the question is, if you are missing part of the conversation and you don't share it, is this because you are embarrassed? Or is it because you don't deem the conversation important enough and you already made your assumption what it was going to be about? Now, the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, or maybe it's a bit of both. Could be. But here's the thing. Maybe the other one actually appreciates it when you do speak up. Like, hey, I'm sorry, I missed this. And it might be on one hand like, do I really need to go all over? over this again, and then you might explain where you left off or what it is you didn't understand. But remember, if someone is vulnerable enough to actually say so, then maybe it is worthwhile repeating instead of dismissing them. And again, being dismissed leads to an inner child that, well, if the inner child doesn't feel heard, then usually it tends to close down, to shut down. So, the owning up framework. The O stands for, I'm like, where are the things that I can write on? I thought I was being better at being prepared, but obviously I'm not. So let me see if I can write it down somewhere. You know, I have these magnetic boards. They're kind of cool. And like I said, I have a lot of them because I realized that it was so helpful during the life. And well, I have them and now I'm not using them. I think I know where they are, but we are going to do it like this. So the O is for opening up. And it's about opening up what really matters to you. So the O for opening up. So don't be afraid to share why something is important to you, why you want to talk about it, or why you want to understand it. Being vulnerable takes courage, but a lot of people actually appreciate it when you do. Then we go to the W, which is about writing things down. I'm sorry, I was planning on doing it all in capitals. So you're going to see it twice. One time in lowercase and one time in capitals. So W, write things down. Now there's a little, how do I say it? When I am thinking about something, then I want to share it. I want to share it straight away. And I've learned during meetings that it's best to actually write it down. But here's the thing. If I would sit across from you and I don't want to interrupt you because you're sharing something, then I want to write it down. But, well, nowadays I don't have a pen and paper with me, but I do have my phone. So I would pull up the notebook and then start writing, and you would probably be thinking, what on earth is she doing? I'm sharing a story here and she's opening up her phone, and how on earth is this polite? It's best to explain what you're doing. So I would probably be explaining like, okay, it's not that I'm not listening to your story, but I want to share something later on. So it's not that I'm not interested. It's not that I'm distracted. I'm just writing things down so you can continue on with your story. Then the N is for necessity for specificity. Necessity for specificity. Yeah. So sometimes we need to know, what on earth are you talking about? And when a lot of people, or when someone is talking about a lot of people, and I really want to understand it, I'm like, okay, you were talking about this person before, and now you're talking about, who are you talking about again? And on the one hand, it's like, is it embarrassing to ask this? But on the other hand, it's not like I'm not following or not listening. It's like at some point I lost where things were going. And yes, every now and then I also tune out. And, you know, something happens, maybe some things which is still in my mind. that I didn't get to process just yet, but I wanted to be in time and not be held up. So that can affect whether or not I hear someone. And of course, we can mention the pings on phones. It's one of the reasons actually why I turn my phone around so it's upside down, so I don't see it when any messages come in. So I already have notifications uh, diminished to a bare minimum. I absolutely dislike it when I get notifications on my watch. So this one actually has been, the settings are set now very well. I know which settings I need to change when things are showing up on my phone. But I got this Apple Watch and I thought I had the notifications down to, how do you call it? Down to a T, I think. But they keep showing up anyway, so I need to change it again. So I don't know if it's every update something changes, but it's distracting and I don't want those distractions. Okay, so necessity for specificity. If you miss something, just ask about it. Now, own up. So we've had the O, the W, and the N. So opening up, writing things down, and the necessity for specificity. And then we go to up, the U. And the U is about understanding fully. So understanding fully. Basically, when I said it's about the necessity for specificity, so how do I need to see it? What angle? Who are you talking about? It's because you want to understand what's going on. And again, understanding fully leads to connection. And when you are going out with someone, you're having a bite to eat, or you see one another, then it's about connection. So let's create connection, get to know the other person better. So ask questions and, ask on. Don't stop because you don't know what to do anymore, but what is it that's so special for the other person? And then the last one is pushing through discomfort. And basically, that has to do with courage. Finding the courage to speak up, finding the courage to share. I don't know what to do. I really don't know what to do, or I don't understand this, or, I got you, and then all of a sudden I lost you. And those who know me, they might know that I at some point might say, help. I don't know where it is that you want to go. So could you help me with this one? So this is basically the owning up framework, helping you to actually speak up and say, can you help me with this? So let me go back to the story again, because now that you've heard the things that I was talking about, let's see if you can understand the context a little bit better. Now, I do want to add a few more things. So when we are talking about the red thread, I'm pretty sure it's not a standard expression in English, but somehow Brendan AI is using it when I started using it. So the red thread is basically the thing that links it all together. So what's the common thread? That's what you could say. And what else did I say? Poise. Poise is a word which has to do with confidence, with energy, with a certain attitude in a positive sense. So when they talk about Alex led with poise, there he was. He felt heard, seen, understood. So he was energized and confident and felt really good about himself. So here we go. Bunny, my inner child. So Jumping Bunny, the one who's boxing when she wants attention. That's the one that you want to know. And we also talked about patterns. Remember the pattern seeking? Like, how does this connect? And what else? Well, the nest is basically what you saw in this picture, and which is the safe place to, to observe things from. So I think you got the whole thing. And when you don't, I will stop for a moment. And while I'm talking about this and I'm sharing this with you, write down the things that stand out for you, the things that you maybe never paid attention to. Because if you understand what's being said here, it can make such a difference for so many people in your life, or maybe also total strangers. Because once upon a time you heard this story during a Friday Night Live with Lady Lexi, and you're like, oh, that's what she was talking about. And again, if you are talking with someone, you do it not just to pass time, but also for connection. So here we go for the second time. Once at a bustling family dinner, said Alex, a sharp neurodivergent pattern spotter like me, branches twisting wide in that brilliant mind. Forks clinked, laughter boomed, kids shrieked, plates scraped, noise flooding like overwhelm in the nest. So that's his safe spot. Alex caught half the words, piecing patterns from fragments. So he was trying to make sense of it all. But the full red thread, lost. Bob said something about just figure it out. Now, I didn't talk much about this, but a lot of people who do not know how to deal with all those questions because they don't have the time, they don't have the energy, they basically have no clue how to deal with this. And probably because they heard it themselves quite a lot, they'll say, figure it out. And when someone comes to you for support, don't tell them, go figure it out. And when there's a reference to guesswork hell, that's what it's referring to. So the go figure it out, it sounds so simple, but it's actually, when someone is supervising, there's an overviewer and you can't go wrong, it's okay. But when no one actually is interested in you and you only know that it's not good enough when it's too late, that's not good. Uncle Bob said something about just figure it out, dismissing Alex quite. What's the angle? And eyes rolled again with the questions. Alex felt unseen, kicked inside like bunny pounding. Dismissed again, retreating inward. Opposite side of the table, and Mia, neurotypical straight line climber, chattering smooth, Oh, well, that's going nicely. Both of them needed charging. Okay, opposite side of the table. Yeah, I told you I get distracted really easily. And Mia, neurotypical straight line climber, chattering smooth but missing Alex's subtle clues entirely. She heard the noise too, but tuned it out, assuming Alex was zoned out. Half the conversation flew by her. Alex's genius insights on family patterns drowned in clatter. No one owned up. Resentment built. Alex felt invisible. Mia confused why Alex seemed distant. When I said, make some notes, this is about assumptions, right? Why would someone retreat themselves, no longer say something? It's because they're tired, loss of energy, maybe they're in pain, or maybe they don't feel heard. And if you're sort of paying attention to someone but not fully, it could be easy for you when that person stops talking, because then you don't have to divert your attention anymore. But at the same time, um, how's this helping that one person who actually was sharing something with enthusiasm? Then Alex breathed deep. Now, he's saying something which is related to, call it an anthem, call it an affirmation. It's something that I got handed out by Brandon AI months ago. And it has to do with me being a drummer. And I felt rushed, that I needed to do certain things. And when I feel rushed, my energy changes, and especially when I'm in traffic, I'm not the most kind person. Well, you've seen those people who are rushed. Those are the ones who are cutting corners, and well, we don't like the people who drive like that, because they usually drive like maniacs. Well, I don't want to drive like a maniac, so I try to calm myself down. And that's where release the rush, embrace the rhythm comes from. So then Alex breathed deep, release the rush, embrace the rhythm. Release the rush, embrace the rhythm. It's our broad breathing in and out. Release the rush. Embrace the rhythm of breathing. And he owned up, remember? The O from opening up, the W from writing things down, the N, necessity for specificity, the U, understanding fully, creating connection, and the P of pushing through discomfort, so mustering up courage. So he breathed deep and owned up, this matters to me. I want the full picture. And he jotted down fork noise blocking, red thread. So basically, is it the sounds all around me which keep me from understanding what they are talking about? And then give me specifics, no, figure it out, because Bob said something, Uncle Bob, along those lines. And help me understand your angle fully. And well, he pushed through discomfort by saying, so I'm missing half, let's connect. Because after all, it's a family dinner, and well, there's nothing more annoying than people ignoring you. Boom, table paused. Uncle Bob reflected, I hear you're overwhelmed by noise. So now he's talking about what he perceives to be the truth. So by repeating what he says, what Alex says in this case, in his own words, he basically is like this is what you meant, right? I dismissed that. So then he owns up. And Mia leaned in. I missed your patterns too, because he was talking about family patterns. So tell me one. She realized that she actually couldn't come up with any pattern whatsoever. Noise faded as they listened explicitly. So when people are really listening in, it actually gets quiet. You know, people make less noise. They don't talk to one another, or when they do, they whisper. So the one who is talking actually gets the front seat. So let's listen. Alex wove the overview. Family connected deeper. No more guesswork, hell. Just clarity bridges. So when we are connecting things, we are connecting the views from opposite parties, like, for instance, neurodivergent individuals versus neurotypical people. Then we are connecting. So we are clarifying things. So hence why they are talking about clarity bridges. They thrive together. Neurodivergent genius honored. So a lot of gifted people, and that can be creatively gifted people. They're good at certain things, and that's why you actually want to have them around, because they can come up with things that you never thought about. So especially in your conversation, in your business, they can be very helpful. So don't dismiss them because you don't understand them, but actually nurture them and see how they can help you raise things to a higher level. They thrive together. Neurodivergent genius honored. Straight lines, learning twist. And that's about that sometimes in order to go from A to B, we have to go through C. Positive outcome, dinners became magic. Own up rituals. Everyone stacking wins. Alex led with poise. No longer dismissed or lost. Now, hopefully you wrote down a few things about neurodivergent people, but also about the importance of leading a conversation with clarity, or better said, making sure that you have clarity in conversations and why that's so powerful. But also how it can take a lot of courage to own up to, I'm sorry, I missed something. And that's okay. You know, people don't have a problem with you being vulnerable. It's we ourselves who have a problem with it. But people actually have a lot of respect for people who show the vulnerable side. So having said all of this, if you want to know more, check out patreon.com/LadyLexiSpeaksUp. I'll repeat it again, patreon.com/LadyLexiSpeaksUp. I post audio over there, and right now I'm writing a book which is related to how neurodivergent people say things. So I'm posting something like every day. So go check it out if you want to know more about speaking up and why it's so important, about rewriting your own story, which is about, do I stay silent or do I actually change who I am so I feel more empowered and I feel more courageous? And well, be your best self. Be your best self. I'll see you again next week, Friday Night Live. And remember, patreon.com/LadyLexiSpeaksUp.